Now, religion influences society. Society के समाज को देख के laws बनते हैं. Each society has its own laws and they make their own laws and constitution, and which laws and constitution make up a state. So in some ways, that's one way to look at it. Religion to society, society to laws, laws to state. That means they are linked. And you are saying there is nothing wrong in religion and state being linked. Do you not see any how should we make our laws? How should we make a constitution? Should we therefore then derive from religion? Should we make them independently with legal experts keeping interests of justice, equality, freedoms? Should we rights? Should it be done on that basis? Or we have excellent texts from the past, wohi use karke we can make. I'm not judging. I'm just saying.
Sure. So look, I'm sure many have heard of Acharya Chanakya out here. Anyone has read Arthashastra or Chanakya Niti? Anyone? Damn. Oh, one person. Who read? Someone raised their hand out there. Okay. This should be a part of our education system, right? The Arthashastra or the Chanakya Niti. There are, in our traditional way, and the Mauryan Empire was the largest Indian empire ever. There are two types of states. One is the Chanakyan state and the other is the Ashokan state. The Chanakyan state was a minimal but very effective state. So it would do a few things. It wasn't a libertarian state. It wasn't that I would give up everything. No. It would enforce its will, but only on a few things, right? And the rest it left to society. Why? Because their concept, Chanakya's concept was, if the state starts interfering in too many things, you naturally end up having chaos, right? Because some things should be left to society. The Ashokan state actually was the exact opposite. That it would be an expansionary state. It would interfere in many things. The first Indian state that tried to promote vegetarianism, for example, was actually the Ashokan state, right? I am a believer that we should have a Chanakyan state, okay? Like a few things, law and order. Like we have vigilantism, people breaking things. Boss, the Chanakyan state would come down on them like a ton of bricks, right? Infrastructure, regulating trade, it wouldn't get moralizing. So the Chanakyan state, for example, allowed even prostitution, but regulated it, right? But it would do a few things, do it well, leave the rest to society, right? The Ashokan state would interfere in too many things. What that does makes the state weak because it cannot do its core jobs effectively because it's too distracted. Even more importantly, what Chanakya said rightly, Chanakya had a fundamental suspicion of the state. He said you cannot control corruption in the state. And he'd actually used a very interesting line. He said trying to control corruption in bureaucrats is like trying to control how much water a fish drinks while breathing. He said there's no way you can know, right? So the only thing to do is keep it as small as possible so they have fewer opportunities, right? I would argue we don't have a Chanakyan state. We actually have an Ashokan state. It interferes in too many things which is none of its business, right? And doesn't do its core things properly. That's the kind of state we need to have, and things which should be left to society, like who I want to marry or what I want to eat, that's society's job, yeah? And if I want to, there's a Prevention of Superstition Act in Maharashtra, okay? You can argue whether it's good or bad. But if I want to do it, then I should do it the old Indian way, which is go village to village, talk and convince people. It's harder work, right? I shouldn't have the right to go convince some bureaucrat or the court and mandate it down. Because then the state is getting involved in things which is none of its business. Interestingly, among the things that are discussed in the Ramcharitmanas for what state taxation policies would be, is very similar to this. Keep the state minimal. So actually one of the things, who said Ramcharitmanas out here? One of the things that was discussed was actually the state should not tax too much. The state should tax a bit like a bee taking honey from a flower. Does it just about right for what the bee needs and leave the flower alone. That is actually the traditional Indian way.
Okay.